When Doctor Who was first created, it was planned to be an educational show for children, using a time machine as its medium of engaging in historical events. The show soon evolved and had William Hartnell's first Doctor facing off against the types of aliens and monsters we know and love today. Literally the same ones. At the time, William Hartnell wasn't known as the first Doctor, but rather just the Doctor, and there were no plans for continuing the show or character with any other actor other than him. So where did the concept of regeneration come from? And how has it been subsequently retconned, manhandled and abused into the mess that is the numbering of the Doctors that we have today? Let's try and make some sense of this madness.
One day, I shall come back. Yes, I shall come back.
An image often thought is of William Hartnell as a very frail and very old man when he played the Doctor. But the truth is, he was only in his mid-50s when the show was airing, and they in fact used TV magic and makeup to make him look older for the role. For reference, David Tennant is 52 and soon to return to our screens as the 14th Doctor for the 60th anniversary specials, but we'll get to him later. Only 3 years into his tenure as the Doctor, and with over 100 episodes already under his belt, Hartnell was unfortunately increasingly struggling to remember and deliver his lines, which in most cases resulted in mistakes or flubs making their way into transmitted episodes, due to them not having enough film or enough time for multiple takes.
Yes, well, I didn't want to,
He sadly had a form of undiagnosed arteriosclerosis, which restricts a person's blood flow to the brain, which is bad. And the condition was only worsening. Producers had noticed his deteriorating health and found it progressively more difficult to work with him, to the point where the future of the show was looking bleak, and they realised they really only had 2 options. 1, end the show, which would be bad for money reasons, or 2, recast the principal character. They quickly formulated a plan to replace the lead actor but keep the show. Originally, a disgruntled producer intended to have Hartnell replace mid-story of the Celestial Toymaker, by having the Doctor disappear and simply reappear as a different actor, but this was quickly vetoed. After a meeting of Hartnell and the producers to discuss his future on the show, it was agreed that Hartnell was to step down and be replaced by another actor. But how could you do it in a way that makes sense and doesn't ruin the show or alienate the viewers? It was script editor Jerry Davis who one day had the thought that if the Doctor's an alien, why not just make it so that his people can renew their bodies into a new one in the event of a death? Everyone thought about it and realised that this was a really rather jolly good idea, as now they could theoretically keep the show on the air forever by continuously replacing their lead actor. The intention at the time was that William Hartnell's incarnation was the first and original Doctor, putting him firmly at Doctor number 1. And so, at the end of the really rather good but still missing its final episode, The 10th Planet, after defeating the Cybermen, a weak and tired First Doctor stumbles into the TARDIS, slumps to the ground due to old age and fatigue, and regenerates into the Second Doctor.
An alien spy! Sent here to spy on me! Spy!
The 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th Doctors all too eventually get to the point of death and regenerate. Let's quickly go through them. The 2nd Doctor has a forced regeneration by the Time Lords, but we never actually see it happen. We see 2 start to die and then Series 6 ends. The first episode of Series 7 we see the 3rd Doctor fall out of the TARDIS with a bout of regeneration amnesia. Remember this for later. The 3rd Doctor dies from radiation poisoning. The 4th Doctor dies from a big ol' fall from a telescope. It's also during the 4th Doctor's era that we learn that all Time Lords have a limit of 12 regenerations, meaning 13 lives total. This is really important for later, unless your name's Chibnall. The 5th Doctor dies from Spectrox poisoning. The 6th Doctor just sort of dies after the Rani shoots the TARDIS mid-flight, and then he's just dead. Side note, this is because in the real world land, Colin Baker was unceremoniously fired because of the not much like Michael Grade, controller of the BBC at the time, and he was asked to only return for 4 new episodes, planned to be a regeneration story. But Baker refused to return, and instead what we see in the episode is Sylvester McCoy's 7th Doctor in a 6th Doctor costume and blonde wig. I might make an entire video dedicated to how the 6th Doctor's era and more so Colin Baker were continuously shafted by the producers and the powers that be. Poor Colin. The 7th Doctor is gunned down by a gang and dies during a botched surgery. The 8th Doctor... It's when we get to Paul McGann's 8th Doctor that things take a turn. In terms of live action, his Doctor only ever had one made-for-TV movie that was then supposed to be followed by a new series of the show. But uh-oh, the movie dropped like a deck and flopped like a fish, so needless to say, the planned series was cancelled. McGann continued to return to the role during the Wilderness years for countless Big Finish audios, but even then, a lot of fans didn't consider his Doctor to be a legitimate incarnation.
What about Paul McGann?
Paul McGann doesn't count.
The show by this point had been off the air for many years, and it didn't look like it would return any time soon. Until...
Rose. What? Everybody!
It was announced in 2004 our Lord and Saviour Russell T Davies would be bringing Doctor Who back to our screens, but this time he would make it cool and edgy for the modern world of 2005. With a new actor in the role, it was confirmed that Christopher Eccleston would play the 9th Doctor, finally and officially cementing Paul McGann as the 8th and final Doctor of Classic Who. The 9th Doctor, in a shock twist at the end of his first and only season, regenerates. His cause of death is absorbing the time vortex from Rose, saving her life. Okay, so this is where things start to get a little bit complicated. A lot complicated comes later. I just want to give some context first. In David Tennant's first episode, The Christmas Invasion, the 10th Doctor loses his hand to a Sycorax sword attack, and it falls somewhere over London. Remember this for like 10 seconds from now. Near the end of season 4, the 10th Doctor is exterminated by a Dalek, oh no! But wait, in his first episode his hand was chopped off over London. Ah, you remember. Turns out, Jack Harkness, former off-and-on companion, found the hand for... reasons, and kept it in a jar and turned it into a Doctor detector. Eventually, 10's severed hand finds its way into the TARDIS and is there when 10 starts to regenerate from the Dalek's blast. Except he instead aims all his regeneration energy into the hand, saving his current incarnation's life. This regeneration energy was stored in the hand but needed something else to sort of jumpstart it into life. Donna then touches the jar and the Meta-Crisis Doctor is born. And he is technically the 11th regeneration of the Doctor. This is the first complication. When the 10th Doctor eventually does die, it is due to radiation poisoning again. Next is Matt Smith's 11th Doctor, but not really because of the Meta-Crisis Doctor, so that makes Matt Smith the 12th Doctor. Except wait! During the 11th, actually 12th Doctor's era, it's revealed that there was a secret regeneration we didn't know about this whole time! Neatly slotting in between the 8th and 9th incarnations, in the short, The Night of the Doctor, McGann's 8th Doctor fatally crash lands on the planet Khan, and we finally see his regeneration. Except it isn't into the 9th Doctor like everyone thought, it's into a different incarnation. He wills himself into a warrior in an act for his next life to finally put an end to the Time War. And he is known as the War Doctor. Okay, cool, so now War Doctor is actually the 9th Doctor, 9 is 10, 10 is 11, Meta-Crisis is now 12, so Matt Smith is the 13th and final incarnation of the Doctor. Okay, cool, that's it. Go over, show's home. Nah, just kidding. Turns out that after Doctors War 10 and 11, actually 9, 11 and 13, saved Gallifrey and hid the Time Lords in a pocket dimension in the Day of the Doctor, those pesky Time Lords caused a whole chain of events with cracks in time and space to make sure the coast was clear for their return, or something. Shenanigans ensue, and the 11th, actually 13th Doctor is granted a whole new regeneration cycle, meaning 12 more regenerations, baby, let's go! The 11th or 13th Doctor then dies of old age and fatigue after protecting the town of Christmas. Things get back on track here just for a moment, and the 12th Doctor, actually the 14th Doctor, played by Peter Capaldi, has his time and then regenerates as normal into Jodie Whittaker's 13th, actually 15th Doctor. Well, okay, that's confusing, but at least that's the worst the numbering could get, right? It's not like some hack man-child will become showrunner and ruin 50 plus years of canon just to leave his mark on a franchise by inserting his own boomer fan theories from the 80s. Anyway, the 12th Doctor, or 14th Doctor, dies from Cyberman hugs and explosions.
What's the point of being alive?
The Chibnall Era of Who started off by proudly stating it had no recurring villains or characters from any previous seasons, and it would instead stand on its own feet with exciting new monsters and characters. It was mid as hell, and so the next series had a shed load of returning aliens, characters, and references to previous Who in it. It also introduced a retcon so large it completely and utterly split the fanbase in two and caused a lot of fans to turn against the show, and more specifically to turn against the showrunner at the time, Lil Chibs. During the 13th, actually 15th Doctor episode, The Fugitive of the Jadoon, it's revealed that there is yet another secret version of the Doctor that's been kicking it out in space this whole time. An incarnation known as the Ruth Doctor. Remember earlier when I mentioned that we never actually see the second Doctor regenerate into the third and we just sort of assumed it happened as it should? Well, a popular coping mechanism for the Ruth Doctor reveal at the time was that she actually takes place somewhere in here, presumably being forced by the Time Lords into a new body to do their bidding as Ruth, before being forcefully regenerated again and exiled on Earth as the third Doctor at the start of Series 7. I say coping mechanism because then the 13th Doctor, actually 15th Doctor's era beats you over the head with the fact that Ruth is an incarnation that comes before William Hartnell's first Doctor. Now you might think it's a bit disrespectful that after 57 years of being Dockie number 1, old William Hartnell suddenly shunted to the curb. Well, it gets much worse. The Ruth Doctor coming before William Hartnell's first Doctor makes no sense in the timeline, especially as she has a TARDIS that's stuck as an old British public call box, and we know that the chameleon circuit broke, causing it to get stuck looking like that during the first Doctor's time on Earth in the 60s. Huh? Okay, that's weird, and it still doesn't really make sense in the timeline, as we know the 11th Doctor was on his 13th and final incarnation, but adding Ruth would mean that he was on his 14th, and that the 10th Doctor was actually the 13th, meaning he shouldn't have ever been able to regenerate into 11 in the first place. But no. Not only do they double down on the fact that Ruth is a pre-Hartnell Doctor, in the season 12 finale it's revealed that the Doctor is actually Space Jesus from another universe, the chosen special one and the crucible for the entire Time Lord race and the ability to regenerate. Yep, turns out the Doctor was actually found as a little girl chilling under a wormhole presumably spat out from a different dimension. The Doctor isn't Time Lord or Shobogan, they're an entirely independent and unknown race from a different universe, and it's actually their race that has the ability to regenerate. Side note, if you've not seen it, JXE has an incredible 5-hour video called The Fall of Doctor Who, which absolutely shreds into the Chibnall Era and specifically the Timeless Child arc in far more detail and with much more scrutiny than I'm covering it here. I'd highly recommend you give it a watch after this video, and you can find it linked in the description. A random crazy lady named Tecteun casually just finds and adopts the Doctor as a child and then takes her home while just out exploring space, I think. Okay, so this little girl is now Doctor number 1, I guess, Ruth is 2, and then everyone else gets bumped up a few, right? Oh hell no, because this is where things get really stupid. One day, as kids often do when playing, the little girl casually falls off a cliff and dies, and to Tecteun's surprise, the first ever regeneration in the Whoniverse occurs, as the little girl's body changes into that of a different young girl. As a non-caring psychopathic mother would, Tecteun then experiments on the child in order to figure out how this regeneration process works, in an effort to give the ability to herself and her people. In doing these experiments, she literally causes the child to die multiple times. Let's count them! Young girl, young girl, young girl, young boy, teen girl, teen boy. Jesus, okay, so 7 kids plus Ruth, that means we've got to bump Hartnell's first Doctor all the way back to the 9th Doctor. But that's it, right? It's over now. Oh god, there's more. Going back in time now, in the 4th Doctor story, The Brain of Morbius, we see the Doctor and titular bad guy Morbius get into a mind bend. And on a screen in front of them appear images of Doctors 1 through 4 as we know them. We then see 8 different faces appear, which at the time were intended to represent incarnations of the Doctor that were in fact pre-Hartnell, but the faces were just those of the cast and crew working on the episode. Them being previous Doctors contradicted previous stories where Hartnell's Doctor was referred to as the earliest Doctor, and the idea was generally all round not well received at the time. It was widely accepted by fans that the faces shown on the screen were either previous incarnations of Morbius or potential future versions of the Doctor. And up until 2020, it was canon that these faces were not the Doctor. That is until Chibnall came along. Oh yes, in the same episode where it's revealed that the Doctor is the chosen one Space Jesus from a different universe, Chibnall doubles down and during a sequence of the Doctor trapped in the Matrix on Gallifrey, she thinks really hard about her life in previous incarnations, eventually overloading the machine that's designed to store all Time Lord memory and knowledge with her memories. Anyway, this somehow sets her free. During her big thinky think, we're treated to a weird remixed version of the Doctor Who theme while Jodie's 13th, actually I've no idea what number at this point, Doctor holds her head and screams silently, all the while a load of clips of previous Doctors play. We start at Peter Capaldi's 12th Doctor and then go back one by one all the way until Hartnell's first Doctor. 15 total, including the War and Meta-Crisis Doctors. Then it shows all the child Doctors in order, okay, Jesus, so 22 in total now. But then he did it, and he made them canon. We see the Morbius Doctor's faces appear during the sequence. This was a shock, because who wanted this? Nobody wanted this. Oh wait, that's right, a group of extreme fans from the 80s loved this and some other stupid theories. Hartnell master plan. And Chibnall was one of them. So now he's retconned the whole show so his fan theories were right, regardless of how it takes a big steaming doo-doo on the history or legacy of the show. How about the time we see Clara go into the Doctor's literal personal timeline and the episode makes a point to mention how she saw all 13 lives plus the War Doctor? We also see Clara interact with the First Doctor as he steals the TARDIS, and it's not a police box yet. So how can Ruth's be a police box if she comes before him? Nice one, Chibs. Jumping ahead and ignoring all the new old Doctors for a minute, let's talk about the 13th Doctor's regeneration. She dies to a big laser. She then regenerates into David Tennant again, as a different incarnation, known and marketed as the 14th Doctor. We also know that after the 3 upcoming 60th anniversary specials, he will regenerate into Ncuti Gatwa's 15th Doctor. So, as it stands, the BBC and Doctor Who as a show recognise the numbering to be such. Meaning, 15 official numbered Doctors and 3 stragglers with titled Doctor names, 18 in total. But in reality, after all the damage done by Chris the Chibnall, the numbering is as follows. This means that the Doctor's numbering is actually off by a count of 18. Okay everybody, I hope you're excited for the 60th anniversary specials featuring the 32nd Doctor? And boy oh boy, I can't wait for after that when we get the 33rd Doctor's new season. In all of Classic Who, we had 8 Doctors. Before Chibnall, New Who only had 7 Doctors. But now, thanks to Chibnall, New Who has given us 25 Doctors. I know there's an argument to be made that some of these new incarnations aren't actually the Doctor, and that these kids come before that choice, the defining mark of the character. But for almost 6 decades, the character that made this choice was William Hartnell's first Doctor, and he is such a beloved and iconic part of the show, the real-world starting point who without there would be no show today. To suddenly insert your own multiple Doctors, an entire new history of the show, in such a half-baked way that Chris Chibnall did, is nothing but disrespectful. And for him to call himself a fan of the show means that he's taken only the wrong lessons away from his viewings. The Doctor isn't supposed to be the chosen one, destined to save the day with special magical abilities only they have, like a superhero. The point was that they chose to run away, do good, and that's it. They were special for their actions and not for their biology. In conclusion, the numbering doesn't make sense no matter how you shake it, it's stupid and it doesn't matter. It's never mattered to Chris Chibnall or to anyone involved in the show at the time, and it was just the plot he added because he could, and I guess subversion is always good even if you hate it. The storyline went nowhere to the point where the Doctor literally just throws the answers and all of her memories of those past lives away deep into the TARDIS and deciding that she doesn't want to know. Because I guess 2 seasons worth of teasing and retconning were all supposed to be a lesson in accepting what you asked for. Even if you never asked for it, and even if you didn't get what you didn't actually even ask for. Seeing as Chibnall could barely be bothered to conclude the arc, I highly doubt Russell T Davies will. I expect this whole era is something that will be somewhat shoved to the corner and ignored, like a weird uncle at a family function. Or how the Doctor said he was half human on his mother's side in a TV movie.
I'm half human. On my mother's side.
Why would you say that? Why would you say that?
So it doesn't matter either way. The BBC and the show itself will still refer to them as Doctors 1 through 15, even though it's technically actually 1 through 33. At least now you can proudly live your life with the knowledge that a fictional alien with fictional numbers actually has different fictional numbers associated with them than the fictional numbers people think. You're very welcome.
Hello, it's me from the future, and I'm outside now. Thanks for watching. This was meant to come out ages ago, well before the 60th, but oops, sorry. Make sure you do the things and follow me on TikTok, because that's where I post most of the stuff. Thank you, bye.